Installation of Easy Security require a few technical things with NAV 2013-2 in here. This one is a basic list of what is required in here. The first thing is to import the NAV Easy Security object, and the object can be found on Mergetool.com's website. So if you go out here on the NAV Easy Security history, you can always download the latest version from out here. So as I download this one in here, I will have all the objects. This one includes objects for 2.6 and any version after that until 2013 or 2. Newer versions will also be added as soon as they get available from Mergetool.com in here to the same file. So the file is now downloaded, and if I extract that file here, I will see that I have the Easy Security folders in here. We have language modules for both 2009 and 2013. There's a few differences between the standard terminology in those, and our modules only ship with the language of English in here. So if you need additional ones, you can import them from these folders in here. Then we have each of the versions. We have a help file that is for 2013 and older, and then we have help file for NAV 2013 or 2 and later using the help server. We also have some demo data for all the extra roles that we actually deliver to NAV in here. But we're going to use 2013 or 2, so we're going to use the objects from in this folder in here. We have 3 files in here. First of all, the main part is all the objects for the application. Then we have some objects for field level security that will be changed as we run it. And if the menu suite that we're using is already in use, you can actually import the additional ones from this file up here. But in general, this file should only be used if you have a conflict with the menu suite. So let's open up NAV. And this one is 2013-2 in here, and it's a complete standard NAV demo database, worldwide demo database. Only difference is a few users has been added in here compared to the demo setup that actually uses no users at all in here. So if I go to IT administration general, I'll be able to see the users, and I have 2 in here, one being the one I'm using, and it's a super user down here for all companies. And then we also have set up Susan in this database, and she has some regular permissions only inside the Kronos International company. So first step would be to import the new objects in here. And I can go to, I think it's let's copy it from down here. And I will download or import the latest pop file in here. And that's 234 objects. If you compile the objects now before you actually import the last file of it in here, you see that a few of the objects actually don't compile, and that's because I didn't import these objects that will be modified during the field level security. So let me go ahead and import the second file also in here, that is the empty objects down here. And it's just 4 new objects. The only object that could potentially cause a conflict in here would be this menu suite. And if you have that one, we deliver all the menu suites in this file in here. And if I say no in here, you can just pick one of these ones and import them if you don't have that object in there. But don't ever import all of them. You only need one menu suite in there. So I've finished importing the objects in here. Next thing is we need to create a new company. We want to keep all the Easy Security data inside a new company to avoid other users to have access to it if they're not supposed to deal with security, and also to hide the information from other users that way. So let's go to the hotel client in here. Look at my companies, and we'll just create a new one. We normally call that Easy Security. It takes a few seconds when it creates all the tables in SQL, but now the new company exists in here. So to launch our install wizard, we need to select the other company now inside the Easy Security. So go down, look under my departments. I have my Easy Security menu now. To launch the install wizard, you have to go to roles and logins, and then actually go to security setup. Before we do that one thing that is needed for Easy Security is to actually be able to export or to have the text file of all the objects in here. So if we go back here to the development environment, we need to export all objects to text in here. And if I try to do it with this license right now, I'll see that I don't have permission to it in here. Or I can export all of them to a prop file in here. But if I actually go in here and export them to text, I'll get a permission error that I don't have access to that one. And unless you purchase the 7200 module, this file is something your partner would normally deliver in here. So let me switch to a partner license in here. Reconnect to my database in here and go to the object designer again. And I will export all objects. It's not necessary to have all objects in this file. We can actually also use recording without having any source code in here, but it really is used for all the table relations, all the flow fields, fact boxes, and so on, launching objects, and many of the other features inside roles and logins. For field level security, to be able to implement that on a page, you need to be able to export that page to text in here, so we can run the source code analysis. But this one basically exporting all the objects now. I'm using a setup here where I have the service tier on my own computer here running at the same time. So I don't have a problem using local files, but in general, you will need to put these files on a network drive, something with a UNC pass that starts with 2 backslashes out there. You can also share a folder on your own drive and then allow your service tier account to actually have access to that one. So let's minimize this one again and go back to the role seller client now. We now want to run the install wizard. We're in the Easy Security company, and as I launch security setup the first time, it asks if I want to initialize a complete setup in here. And if I click OK to that one, it comes into our wizard. The only thing we really need in here is a source code file name and nothing else in here. And I'll just browse to that file I just created. And again, since I'm running the service tier locally in here, I can actually access this file locally, but in general, you would use a network share for this one. You could make one on your own computer actually that you would be using for this one. But you also want to initialize a complete setup in here. We have a few other functions up here that actually can test for certain things, but it creates a new role center. So if you're an IT person, the only thing you do is dealing with security, you can actually use that role center. creates a restore point. It's basically a snapshot of the current security, and then it moves that into Easy Security. And after that one, it starts reading that text file I created to get all the relations from it in here. And it will take between 3 and 10 minutes and so on. If it takes longer than that, you probably have placed the file in a place where it's very hard for the service tier to get to it. So it shouldn't run for a very, very long time. It should take less than 10 minutes to do a source code analysis. The source code analysis is now finishing. There's a few things left. It's setting up the last pieces of Easy Security in here, and my setup completed in 102 seconds now. As I close this wizard, it goes into the regular security setup. If you close the wizard before it finishes, then you can actually use this function to call up the wizard again after that one. You can't call it up when it already has finished running in here. You have a little list of comments out here. Actually, you can see that each process actually finished and what actually happened with time. The only thing you really would need to do additional in here is typically to set up the number of restore points to keep in here. Restore points accumulate over time, and there's really not a reason to keep that many of them. So typically you go in here and maybe put in like 20 restore points. You can actually lock restore points that are interesting to keep for the future, so you don't have to have those ones being counted in the 20 you actually keep it in here. So but that finished the installation wizard in here, and if I look at logins, I will see all my logins has been moved into Easy Security. If I look at Susan, I can see all the roles and things like that one. It has all been added in here. It created company groups for all the existing companies. All the roles has been moved in here. And where you normally would have permissions set up directly under the role, they have actually, with Easy Security, been added as role builder permissions in here. So you have all these additional features you can use with them in here, for example, ranges and so on. So everything that existed in this database has now been converted into Easy Security. So let's go take a look at the list of what we needed to do in here. So we ran the installation wizard. One thing we need to do is add a service tier. If you only have a single user connecting to this test environment, you can restart the service tier without interrupting other people. But in general, you want to have a service tier that can be restarted. You also want to have that service tier running as a user in a way you can filter on it using the SQL Profiler. So we're going to set up a second service tier. We're going to run it as another user in the system so we can filter on that one. And then we're going to set up the SQL Profiler. So the first thing to do is to create a new user in here. So I'll go and find my computer management in here. And I'll add a new user. This one is a local setup, so you probably want to have a user setup in an Active Directory if you have a setup like that one in here. So I would just go in and have a user called NAV Recording. And I'll set the password never to expire, because else suddenly one day it won't work any longer when it's running that service. So that's an important piece. But else, I'll go here and now have added that new user down here, NAV Recording in here. So the next thing to do is to add it to the SQL database. So this user can actually access the database also. So let's go find the SQL Management Studio. And I have my training database down here. I want to have a new login added in here. I'll go search in here, NAV recording, and in my database in here, NAV training, I'm going to have this one be DB owner down here. So I want to give them access to that one, and that should allow them to run the service tier in here. So the last thing I have to do is add the new service tier, and I'll use NAV administration console for that one. And I can see I have a couple of them in here. So I'm going to add an instance, and I'm going to call it NAV 2013 R2 recording. I have a port number that I know is available in here, but you have to normally look at which one is currently in use. And I'm not going to run it as a network service. I'm going to run it as a user account. It's going to be NAV recording. And the domain for this one is actually called demo. And the password was the one I just set up. And one thing to be aware of, this one with the dots confuses a lot of people. When you actually tap out of the password field, it always puts 10 dots in here, not the number you actually type in here. So let's go ahead and add that new service tier. As I look at it, I'll see that it's using the demo database in here, and that's actually not the one that I'm using during the training in here. So let's go ahead and copy this value and go edit my database name in here. Could also be that you actually needed to add a lot more information in here. So then I'm just going to go ahead and save that one, and I can then start my service tier and see if I got everything right in here. So the service tier is running, so let's see if it actually works in here. And oops, pick this one here. I need to change two things in here. The port number and the service tier name. So it seems like it didn't get my SQL permissions right in here. So let's go look at my training database. Okay, so let's make it part of DB owner down here. Go restart this one in here. Let's see if it now works. Now I can see the companies. I can select Easy Security, and I'm ready to actually do recordings in here using this service tier. The next thing I have to do is set up the SQL Profiler. The SQL Profiler is part of the SQL Management Studio in here. So you can go to Tools, SQL Profiler up here. And the first thing we have to do is basically import a template. And I'm just going to use that import. I'm going to have that, I need to find that folder where it's in. It's inside the installation folder for Easy Security. And we have, for each version of the SQL database, we have the template in here to be imported, and I have the 2012 SQL Server down here, so I need to import this one. You can't import the newer ones in an older version of the SQL Management Studio. That's one thing to be aware. And it imported my template. So if I now go to templates, I can edit this template, and normally we actually select the Easy Security one. We check the field that it's a default template. In that way, we don't have to always remember to select it. If you don't select the right template, we're not going to capture the events we actually need for our processing. So, but I'm just going to save this one as a default. And when I do a new trace now, it automatically picks the right template. I can now go to event selection, and I can do a column filter in here. And since I actually used another user in here, I can go in and say I want to use user NAV recording. It's always a good idea to put the percentage signs around it, because it's not always consistent what the name is actually with uppercase, lowercase, domain, and so on. But as I run this one, I'll now see a few things that's happening in here. If I go back to NAV, I switch my company to one that actually has financial data in it. I can go to my customers, change the thing in here, and then go back to my trace and stop this trace in here. I'll just save it again as a trace XML file. We can deal with local files in here, but there is an upload size limit in here, so I'm actually going to save this one as, I guess I already had an edit customer, so I'm going to replace that one. Switch to my Easy Security company. And the role center changed to the rapid start, by the way. And that was because we created a new company in here. You can actually change this back again in here to the order processor as it should have been. You see that rapid start was made the default down here. So I can actually make this one back as the default role center, but it's part of a standard Microsoft functionality that when you create a new company, it will create this rapid start role center and make it the default for some reason. But else, I can go to my roles. Just want to test that everything works fine in here. Create a new one. And I will add my new recording. Import my SQL Profiler trace. Again, the service tier runs on a different computer typically than me, so I should not use a local drive. I should always use a network pass up here. See, in this case, that file is not able to be read actually by that user that is running in here. So if I go in here in my temp folder, and this one is even on a local computer actually in here. So if I go in here to properties, security, I'm going to edit this one in here. And now it actually allows me to import that one. So this one with 2013 and the way the service tier uses a different account and so on, it's really important to actually have permission to that folder as the service tier is running for the user that the service tier is running within here. But else, I can see there's several processes in here. one for Kronos International, one for Kronos Easy Security. I just basically going to add all of them because I'm only testing here anyway that it actually works for my technical setup in here. I'm going to go through this one in a lot more details. But I recorded 95 permissions, and if I update my role, I'll see that with the source code analysis added, it will actually be 159 in here. So that's conclude the part of being able to set up the SQL Profiler for recording in here. The last piece is field level and data security. And first we need to do the initial setup in here again. So let's minimize everything in here and go down to field level and data security in here. This company, Easy Security in here, is the primary company for all the data. So we want to check this install allowed up here. If you're only installing field level security, you would actually need to have a source code file with tables, pages, and forms for 2009 in here. Since I already did all this for my roles and logins, I can actually get relations, and it will actually reuse the one from roles and logins in here. And there's a few pages in the system that don't have a source table, so that's why it comes up with this message in here. Next thing is I have to select a source tables that I actually want in here. So I want to have my 15, 17. And this one is a normal one we use, but that's up to a decision by the customer typically, which one we use. That's the one we use for our training sessions normally. We now need to export the objects to text in here. And we have a function up here where we can actually mark the objects in the object designer in here. And I didn't get all the objects in this case actually because my license don't work. In a future version of Easy Security is actually going to be able to select independent of the license actually. But the objects we need for this install is basically tables and pages, and I don't need to actually filter only for the one I need. It just makes it go a little faster in here. So all I'm going to do here is just export all the objects. And again, I'm going to export them both in prop because it allows me to roll back if I have a problem with an object when I actually have added the code to it. But the other thing is I also need to do it in text. And again, as you do text, you need the license. And I have already switched this time to use partner developer license down here. Since I'm exporting all pages and all tables, it's actually going to be slower running. If normally you would only have these 100 objects being needed in here for this implementation. Well, let's go ahead here and select the file. I have my installer one in here. It needs to be finished exporting down here, but I guess it is now. So I open up that file, create an output file name, and that's where it's going to put the modified object, again in text format in here. So I implement the changes in code now. Goes through the text file that I created. It reads the table, it don't modify those ones. It will go through the pages, and if one of the source tables for that page is the one I selected, it will actually go ahead and add that one to the list, and then it will implement the code and put it in the out file in here. Again, I have a folder that I'm using where the service tier have access to, because yeah, I'm selecting the file, but it's actually the service tier doing all the changes to that file in there. So the installation process is now finishing out here. I can see we modified 3 code units, and that's actually 3 in the Easy Security range. I modified 89 pages, but I didn't do anything to other object types in here. So what it told me is to go import that file, and if I look at that folder first, I can see I had my installed text file, 24 megabytes. My out file is 10% of that one in there. So that's only the objects I was modified in here. So let's go import that text file. The out file down here. You'll have all the pages inside the file. And then if I look at the uncompiled objects in here, I'll see that I have 3 code units in the 14 million range. It's all Easy Security in here. All objects have the exact same date and time. So that's actually how you would also be able to move it from a test environment to a production environment in here. But I'll go ahead and compile these ones. And it can happen in a custom install that you maybe need a component or something else, and you can't compile some of these objects. It can also be that some of them actually didn't work to begin with anyway, if you exported and imported them from text in here. And that's the reason you exported the FOB file, because when you're done with this, you would actually go in and be able to restore that object by importing it from the FOB file. But I finished the install in here, and I don't have to do any more in my field level and data security setup. The only thing I want to do is basically just do a little test that everything works fine in here. If I go to my user security setup, create a new one for the blank user for table 18. It defaulted to the read-only. That is one of the things that are created automatically in here. So I'll go ahead and close that one. And if I now go to open up my customer card, list of customers in here, I would just see that all the actions are grayed out and things like that one in here. So that's just to verify that the field level security actually works in here. So, but let's go remove that record again, so it don't make it look strange in here. So I'll go here and delete that record in here. This one basically is finishing the install of the technical parts of Easy Security. After this one, we go through the application for roles and logins, and then for the field level and data security. But that's a different video. This one is just the technical install required for 2013 R2 in here.